Good afternoon, good evening, and if you're a third shift worker, good morning. And let's say, if you would, please join us, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, what do we want to do first here?
Ask everybody that wants to talk if they've signed up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, make sure they sign up and read the guidelines.
Okay, first off, we'll start with kind of the agenda, the rules, the guidelines for the meeting. We had a sign-up sheet back there. If you wanted to talk, we asked that you sign up to talk, and kind of like to keep it at about 5 minutes. And did everybody get a copy of the guidelines? Okay, so I don't have to read them to you, but speakers shall be courteous and comments abrasive and harsh. We just ask that you not attack anyone personally, and well, asked at the bottom here, you'll see speakers not be permitted to make condescending comments towards anyone. So we kind of hope we kind of keep it like that. And I don't know. I just like to like everybody. So let's just try to be that way. And we have a resolution. Do we want to read that to get it started? So the resolution that we've prepared, I would like to read.
You want a microphone?
Yeah, there's one over there.
I got one for you.
You're ready, Rob, so we want. Okay, we'll do this on the official side over here. Resolution of the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners. Whereas the Jefferson County Board of Commissioners is the executive body of Jefferson County as established by Indiana Code Section 36-2-2-2. Whereas each member of the Board of Commissioners has taken an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Indiana, and to faithfully, impartially, and diligently discharge the duties of the office of Commissioner. Whereas residents of Jefferson County have asked the Board of Commissioners to affirm their obligation to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and Indiana, particularly with respect to the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution in Article 1, Section 32 of the Indiana Constitution. Whereas the Board of Commissioners acknowledges that the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution states that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and that Article 1, Section 32 of the Indiana Constitution states that people shall have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state. Whereas the Board of Commissioners supports the right of Jefferson County residents created by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution and Article 1, Section 32 of the Indiana Constitution, and the laws associated with both as enacted by Congress and the Indiana State Legislature, and as interpreted by the state and federal courts. It is therefore resolved by the Board of Commissioners as follows. The Jefferson County Board of Commissioners supports the Second Amendment and Article 1, Section 32 rights granted to all Jefferson County residents. Be it resolved that the Jefferson County Commissioners approve this resolution this day, 2022. Ron, Dave, and Bobby. So that's kind of where we are right now. That's how we've read it. That's how we very diligently have looked over this over the past months. You know, months turns into years, so it's taken some time. We all get to use that excuse, COVID. Maybe it's not a good excuse, but we had that thrown in there. So we've kind of been delayed on getting a couple of public meetings out here to present this to you all and get some feedback. I suppose we're hoping for Dave, Bobby, do you have anything before we do public comment? I would like to read what I took very seriously when I took this office. It's the oath of office. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Indiana, and that I will fairly, impartially, and diligently discharge the duties of the office of Jefferson County Commissioner, Upper District of this county according to the law, and to the best of my ability, Ronald H. Lee. 18th day of December, 2018. I took that very seriously. I feel patriotic. I feel a sense of honor and respect for this country and for those men and women who have went on before us, for the men and women who signed this Declaration of Independence, made the amendments to protect and serve the people of this country, and now, like I say, for me to protect and serve the rights and amendments made in these constitutional articles for the residents of Jefferson County of Indiana. That's kind of how I feel, and I hope you all appreciate the oath. To me, it is solid. So, from there, I would like to see if Bobby or Dave have a comment before we open up to public opinion. Okay, so we've made public opinion so that you can get up and speak, and you've signed. I don't know if got it. So, if you've signed, I guess Dave will.
Richard Carter's the first one.
Richard Carter's on there first. You want to sit there, or you want to come up here?
I'll try to stand.
Okay. Come on. What branch of the military again?
Navy.
Navy. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You don't want to stand there.
No, it doesn't.
There we go.
Is it ready? Can you hear me? This was number 3 on my list that they have there. Resolutions, now don't take this personally. The resolutions are feel-good legislation passed by elected officials because they are not enforceable. Resolutions are not enforceable by law in the state of Indiana. Only ordinances. So I have requested an ordinance law. And I had, since 3/1/21, 28 counties have passed the Second Amendment sanctuary resolution ordinances. There are 61.39% of all U.S. counties in the United States that have also passed these ordinances. There are over 100 different versions, and I have submitted a version that I like as an ordinance. Now, the purpose of this ordinance is because Indiana, Jefferson County, would prohibit Jefferson County taxpayers from funding the enforcement of federal or state laws on firearms. It is up to the federal government to enforce their own laws. It's up to the state to enforce their own laws. I do not want the Jefferson County spending money or resources in doing their job for them. Should not be done. And in 1997, the Supreme Court case Prince versus U.S. ruled that the federal government may neither issue directives or directives requiring the states to address particular problems, nor command the state officers or those of their political subdivisions to administer or enforce federal regulated programs and laws. That's a key point. And I also, this what I just can do is ask them to also request the state of Indiana to come on board with several other states that have passed these laws. Wyoming and Missouri have 2 good ones. Missouri will fine you a few $1,000s if you violate the law, their ordinance on the preservation of the Second Amendment. And Wyoming has got about a year in jail. So other states have passed these laws. And the only other comment I had here is on 911, which is not part of the Second Amendment. But most people do not realize, and the reason I stuck it in here is all the discussion going on about the Uvalde, Texas school shooting. 911 police officers do not have a responsibility to respond to individual persons on 911 calls. So if police don't show up, they really don't have to. Most of the time they will. But you should know they are not obligated to do it. And also, they are not obligated to protect you on the street or anywhere else unless you are in their custody. Same with school systems. School systems cannot protect their children unless they are in custody of an employee of the school system. And Parkland, Florida, and several other cases have already been ruled by the court that it is not the police responsibilities to go to schools and protect your children. And I know most people don't like that, but only you and you alone are responsible for your own self-defense and protecting your family and loved ones. And that's about all I have all to say unless you have questions. Back to you then.
Thank you. Ruth Turner.
I'm Ruth Turner. I'm a resident of Graham Township. I've lived in Jefferson County since 1979, except for a small time before that. I taught political science, so thinking about constitutions is right down my alley. And I'd like to make a couple of comments about the resolution that is before us tonight. Paragraph 5 discusses the origin of rights, and I think that that's a mistake the way it's stated. I much prefer the Declaration of Independence's argument that rights come from the Creator, that people have inalienable rights, that they do not come from government, which is implicit in the way that paragraph 5 reads. When we live in a pluralistic society, we have competing rights. And what we have to do is balance those rights. So rather than thinking that the Second Amendment gives rights that trump all other rights, I think that we should think about the standard argument about First Amendment rights, where we all know that despite the fact that we have a right to freedom of speech, we cannot cry fire in a crowded community building or in the theater. So that the premise that we must protect Second Amendment rights up against all other rights, I think is very problematical. Secondly, I'm not clear on what the resolution's purpose is. As Mr. Little said, the commissioners already acknowledge that they uphold the Constitution of the nation and the state. So it seems to me that this is both unnecessary and insulting to the commissioners, because I have faith in each and every one of them that they do support the Constitution of the U.S. and of Indiana. So this is unnecessary, and it opens the door then that you will need a resolution that you support freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of right to trial by jury. I mean, it just is creating more problems than that the commissioners support the constitutions as written. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sure, let's wait. We have more speakers and then we can have rebuttals. So Jane, is it right with her?
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for hosting. My name is Jane Stormer. I am a Hanover resident. I've been a resident since the year 2007, but have been around since about 2000. I am here for kind of similar reasons to Ruth. I'm kind of confused and was hoping to ask some questions about what actually will change in our county if this resolution, or if it becomes an ordinance, is passed. Like, what will be different in our community?
Go ahead. I mean, really, there shouldn't be anything, but we're saying to the people that signed the petition to ask us to pass a Second Amendment sanctuary ordinance, this is what we are supporting the Constitution. We're just making sure they understand. This is what we're saying. Maybe they know, maybe they didn't know, but this is just putting a little more emphasis on our oaths. I took one when I was in the Army. It never ended. So we're just adding a little emphasis to this one because we had a large number of folks that said we need to make sure of the stance of the county on the Second Amendment. So.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. I think there's a lot of confusion in the community that this may lead to essentially gun laws not being enforced, maybe the ones that have already been enacted, or future gun laws. Do you foresee anything like that having any effect of being enforced if this is passed?
No, that's one of the issues. They don't enforce the laws they have on the books now. But this in no way, shape, or form touches that. The best way I can say, it's saying that we three, and I personally am as pro-gun as you can get.
Okay.
And I took the oath in the Army and that's what I meant to do. But it's basically to say we support the Second Amendment fully. But I can't see any gun laws or anything coming out of this. We're not there to do laws.
Okay.
So that's my feeling.
So if Congress decided to say, much like the 1934 National Firearms Act, which essentially limited the ability for people to access machine guns, there were basically more regulations put in place where you had to get approval from the ATF, you had to pay a $200 fee, you had to do the full background check, you had to get local law enforcement approval to own such a weapon. Are those not being enforced?
No, what I'm talking about is like when you sign your form that no, you haven't used drugs, you haven't been in a mental hospital, you have been denied to purchase a weapon before. Those are the ones that need to be enforced, which I think they're really failing on. That's just my perception.
Okay.
But there again, the laws you talked about machine guns, that came from the feds. That didn't come from the county ordinance or laws.
Correct. So this ordinance would have no effect on any federal or state?
It's not an ordinance.
Resolution.
A resolution, okay.
No.
Thank you for correcting me.
I mean, I think, if laws were passed, the constitutionality of those laws would have to be played out in a court of law. And that would, so if someone passed one, you couldn't automatically come and say, all right, you got to enforce this, especially when it is starting. Once it comes out, it's going to the courts. So.
Okay, interesting, great. Well, just for the record and so that it's clear, I was born in South Carolina. I learned how to shoot a gun when I was a child. My school actually taught me how to shoot a gun in middle school while we were in gym class. But I am not pro-gun. I am pro-people living, and I just want to make that clear. I have looked into the eyes of the survivor of a school shooting after they have heard a gunshot, and I have seen the PTSD that happens in children. I have hidden in school supply closets with students and administrators during active shooter drills. I have traveled the world where there are countries where people do not typically own guns, and I have never felt safer And when I go to those countries and ask those students if they want to come and study here, the number one question I got asked was, will I get shot? And I did not have a good answer for them. I couldn't answer that question. One day I hope we can answer that question with more confidence than I could have. But I am 100% for sensible gun laws that are enforced, to close loopholes, to make sure that we're not turning guns into machine guns with accessories and many, many other things. And I just want to make that clear. And that I really don't want to set the tone in our county for all of you to have, for one thing, more paperwork, and to muddle what we already know is law. And already know is our Constitution. So I'm going to end my statement there. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. And I hope this great conversation continues well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandy Palmer?
Sandy Palmer. I've lived here permanently in Jefferson County since 2005 and have been around since about 1995. Well, or, 48. But anyway, on the resolution, if this is going to be a signed resolution, I've got one thing to say on the third paragraph where it says, whereas residents of Jefferson County, that's when I wanted to speak. Could you put some residents of Jefferson County? It's like when people talk for Americans, and it's like, I'm an American and I'm a Jefferson County resident, and I never asked for this and don't see any need for it, because you all are already defending the Constitution, I hope. And secondly, then, if it is going to go through, do we need to come back to you with resolutions that say, will you defend the First Amendment and the 13th Amendment and the 14th and the 15th? So we get that on record. It just seems like a waste of your energy and our time. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Carter has a rebuttal.
Background checks went into operation under a Brady law in the 1980s. It has been a failure ever since. Background law. You know that I can give you a case where I tell you where it failed. Everybody uses dope, have a gun illegally, lied on the background check form. 10 years in prison and fined, but yet he's walking around free and everybody knew he was on drugs and it's laws for some, but not all. Now, all I'm saying is I do not want my tax money doing the federal or the state's job in this county. That's what I'm asking for. We have no business doing the job of the state or the feds that enforce their laws. It is not up to the county. And that document I give you, there's a very specific section that covers on the state. You cannot take over and push the laws down to you to enforce their job, not anybody else's job. And the other thing, all your school shootings happen in one place. Then you have the government, and everybody knows what it is. In the malls, what is it? They all have in common. They're all gun-free, weapon-free zones, every one of them. Why do you think the shooter picks a school? It's because he knows they're not armed, and that the police, number one, do not have to respond and help them if they do. They do, but they don't have to. And the other thing is machine guns. Anybody in this room, if you want to spend $200 for a tax ticket and buy a fully automatic machine gun from a lot of dealers, pick one, you'll sell it. All you have to do is pay the federal tax of $200, and you can be the proud owner of an automatic machine gun. Been around since forever. So that, which is that bad there. But, and actually machine guns, some people will tell you that, well, Second Amendment, you know, the open that musket and so forth. But I'd like to remind you, before this Constitution was written, they had machine guns. And they were in use. The Navy's used them and other people. So machine guns have been around longer than this Constitution. And that's one of them. But I'm just saying, we shouldn't be paying our taxpayer money to do other people's jobs. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak?
Jerry?
I don't have any notes here, so it's gonna be, I'm gonna wing it.
I'm gonna lay this sign up here. We ask you to please sign when you come up here.
Okay. I'm gonna do that. Okay, I had very little knowledge about this until today, okay? And I've been sitting over there listening to everybody say their piece. And this is kind of like you're going around the turnaround up there, on the turn circle up there on top of the hill. One car comes, another car comes, one goes one way, one goes the other, and the other goes that way. And this guy's sitting over there waiting to go his turn, don't know what to do. We got about 4 things going on here that have absolutely nothing to do with this. Nothing. The laws of the state, everybody knows that Indiana now allows anybody that is legally buys a gun to carry it, concealed. Everybody aware of that? Greenwood, Indiana, had a shooter. Killed a couple of people, wounded a bunch of people. The guy that was standing behind a pole, I saw this video up at the BB Sheriff's Office. He was very experienced in what he was doing. He retired special forces guy. He kicks his gun out and he gets behind the poles and he shoots this guy 3, 4, 5, 6 times before he went down. 8 times total. How many people did he save? Now he broke a rule, not a law. He broke the rule because you're not supposed to have firearms in the law. Okay? The same thing that this gentleman said about schools. If you don't believe in guns, that's fine. That's another thing our Constitution gives us the right to do, to pick and choose what we believe in and what we don't. But because I don't like what you don't like, what you like doesn't give me the right to insist that you play by your rules and not the rules of the Constitution, okay? If the Constitution says you can have a gun, all this right here does, from what I've gathered, sitting back there listening, it gives this, he's right about the ordinance and the resolution thing, the resolution, which doesn't have anything to do with an ordinance, it's enforceable, resolution's not. But the point is, if the police aren't going to do something to protect our Second Amendment rights, who's going to do it? That's why the militia is listed in the Second Amendment. Okay, that was people doing that. As a matter of fact, we wouldn't all be here right now. We'd all be under British rule. But the point is that you're getting this confused with something that has absolutely nothing to do with gun laws. The gun laws, if the gun laws get changed, like they just did this past year in Indiana, these guys are going to enforce them just like they would anyway. But what's not going to happen is nothing's going to change as far as the federal or state government being everywhere they're supposed to be all the time, because they can't be. So all we're saying is, all you're saying in this deal right here is that you're giving you're giving an assurance to the people that live in Jefferson County that nobody's gonna come along, politician either side, I don't care, independent, whatever you are, and try to pass something that would change the county laws, which is done all over the state of Indiana and all the others. Go to Chicago, you got somebody sitting up there that, that thinks guns are killing people. There ain't been, no gun has ever killed anybody. Does everybody understand that? This right here is a gun. I can put that there, loaded, cocked, ready to shoot. I can walk around this table, stand 3 times, 1,000 times, until somebody picks that gun up and pulls the trigger. It's all about a mental issue, okay? We're not spending money where we need to about the mental problems we got in the United States. And you're never going to solve this problem by saying, take away the guns. We don't want to have guns, I don't understand why anybody doesn't see that the Second Amendment is something probably one of the most important things we have in the Constitution, because it guarantees us the right to protect ourselves and our family. Now, if this is an ordinance and these guys up here sign it, all that's saying is they're going to make sure if somebody comes along here, a month from now, or a year, or 2 or 3 years from now, and tries to change our county laws, our county rules. And it's happening all over the United States. Some cities say, and the Supreme Court is knocking every one of them down every time. But they do it, and if you don't have the money to fight it, you end up with a town that says you can't have a gun in this town. I lived in Georgia for a little while. I'm an Indiana born and raised that, but Kennesaw, Georgia, you have to own a gun in Kennesaw, Georgia, period, or you get fined. That's how serious they are about it. But my point is, if you don't get this tangled up in your underwear, so to speak, because these guys over here are going to enforce whatever they're supposed to. But with this being signed, all it says is that we are a sanctuary county when it comes to the Second Amendment, period. And you can't. I saw a bumper sticker years ago, and I never have forgotten it. It was a great big one on the bumper. You could read it, from 30, 40 feet. It said, guns cause garbage, guns cause crime like flies cause garbage. Okay, I'll say it again. Guns cause crime like flies cause garbage. It's not the gun. An inanimate object. You get your car out here like this idiot did up here this last year in that parade and mowed down people. And so now we ought to start passing laws you can't have a car, right? So it's real simple. But I see where we're supposed to be going with this, and all the stuff that's been said so far, with the exception of that gentleman right there, is not talking about what this is. This is pretty plain and simple. So I'm going to shut up and say my piece and let the next guy come up here.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
You want to go next?
Sure.
Okay, we'll get them.
Hi everybody, my name is Scott Brewer. I've lived in this county pretty much my whole life here, Switzerland County. I really only had,
Some of them can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I came here because I thought we were going to talk about the ordinance that we presented to the commissioners to make us a second sanctuary. This is nothing to do with that. So at that time, the last time we had the meeting, we were told that you guys were going to speak to the lawyer and have the lawyer review the sanctuary and see what your lawyer said. Do we know what the lawyer had to say about that?
He said we couldn't pass it.
He said you can't pass it?
That
thought you guys made it, not the lawyer.
ordinance as written,
Okay.
when you were going to basically overrule every other ordinance in the county, was not
Okay.
something that he recommended. Okay, maybe I put it that way. that
Did he have
recommended.
a different way to word it to make it acceptable, or?
Well, and this is what we ended up with, was the resolution on the,
Well, this really has nothing to do with what we signed the petition for and asked from the commissioners.
okay? That's your point of view, that's
Okay.
fine.
Are you going to sign that the way that we presented it to you with all the, I will tell you, most of the signatures on that, I personally went out and got myself. I would say probably more than half that are on there. And the people that I talked to, the question wasn't whether you guys would do your job. If you guys think that's what it was, that was not what it was. We wanted you to make it a sanctuary. If you want to amend it, I think you should just talk to her about it. Let's amend it, make it different if it needs to be worded different, and get it passed. I mean, I figured he would have had some kind of recommendation of let's reword it or some way to do. If it's no, we can't do it, and then that's it, then, I mean, why are we even here? This has nothing to do with what you brought us here for, what we thought we were coming here for. Is that not how you guys feel? I mean, we thought that we were coming here to talk about what we presented to you to make an ordinance. And that has, what you're wanting to sign here has nothing to do with it. No?
So, I mean, once again, that's your point of view. You know?
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just my point of view.
So,
It's everybody's signature that's on that in front of you.
No,
Not just
how
mine.
many people saw the ordinance you wanted to pass when they
I
signed?
asked every one of them I asked them if they wanted to read it before they signed it. Every one of them. Did most people read it? No. They got the gist of it, but people did read it. Some people did. But I wasn't dishonest when I presented to them what they were signed up for. It had nothing to do with whether you guys were going to do your job or not. It was what we were asking you to do. And you just pretty much told me that the lawyer said you can't do it. That's not his call. It's yours.
constitutionally,
Did he not tell us we couldn't enforce it even if we did? The previous lawyer, I'll put it that way. I thought that was his take on it. It wasn't enforceable even. Some of it in there.
Yeah.
What stops that ordinance from being enforceable compared to any other ordinance if you pass it?
I know it goes into manufacturing. Right there.
I asked one question right here. If the attorney here said that you can't okay it, what is so different than all the other counties right here in the state that did okay it? It was fine. What's the difference here?
Did they pass this ordinance? This ordinance right here, they passed it?
That ordinance, I believe, was pulled from Jennings County. If I believe it's the same exact one that Jennings County's commissioner signed.
Yes.
I am not saying that's true, but I believe it is. I believe that's a sample we got when we asked people to sign it.
Just think too much.
Are there more copies of that ordinance for those of us who weren't approached by you to sign it?
I don't have any more with me, no. But I'm sure they can provide you with a copy of it.
Here's one right here if she wants it.
Oh.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Do you want us to reverse? I'm not sure when you read.
Well, okay,
what
then
was-
clarify to me, it is yours to pass the ordinance, not the lawyer's, correct?
Correct,
He has no say.
but he's to
I
advise
understand,
it.
I understand you're taking his advisement, yes.
Yep.
Okay. So obviously, I'm not going to get an answer to the question.
so every county in Indiana has passed that ordinance.
No, some of them
No.
are worded
Right.
differently. You asked me where that one
Before-
came from, and I'm telling you, I believe
Before-
that it was sampled from Jennings County.
Before COVID broke out, there was lots of talk and lots of things happened. During COVID, lots of counties signed ordinances because of the fear factor. And I did not want to jump into the fear factor. I don't know about the rest of you. This ordinance here, as I read it, when it was first presented to me, I read it. We were looking into a second sanctuary type of ordinance. When we read this, that's not our ordinance. That's not what we want for Jefferson County. So we kind of we convened and we're talking. COVID broke out, no meetings, everything got iced for a while. Everybody knows that. Now we're coming back together. To answer your question, we're just now coming back together from a year and a half ago, and I feel like we're trying to work on this, and that's what we're trying to do, is put something together. I'm not putting anybody off. We're trying to do it logical and for the best interest of this county. I took that oath, And according to the way I read, ordinance can be changed, that ordinance can be changed next week with 3 new county commissioners. That's how ordinances are. They can be changed 2 weeks from today. So we want to put one together that has some longevity to it, that has some sense, that works for my grandkids, because I'm not going to be here forever, and I don't want to pass something that detours the economic type growth and things that could. There's a couple things in there that were a little detrimental to economic growth. Who would want to? What company would want to come here with some of the stuff in here? Read it. If you haven't, read it. Just read it.
Okay.
I beg to differ with one of the comments you made. You said that COVID caused a lot of these counties to sign from fear. That's a lie.
Oh, I don't lie.
When we presented this
I don't
to the
appreciate-
meeting, we wasn't wearing
I don't
masks.
appreciate that.
The state had already approved it.
I don't appreciate that.
I said I beg to differ with you.
I think he's just questioning a timeline,
Yeah.
is basically what he's questioning.
Well, don't
But-
call it a lie.
So-
What I'm seeing right now, you've got 3 years, almost 3 years from the time it was presented to you, and then you're saying you're just now looking into it. Has anybody even talked to the other commissioners, even try to find out what made them go ahead and sign with y'all? Because it's the people out here. This sounds like the very first meeting that we went to. I didn't come here for another back and forth meeting, somebody's for it, somebody's against it. We've already went through all that. We're supposed to be going through and doing something about it. Everybody keeps talking about that the government is supposed to back up the Constitution for the Second Amendment, but they're out here trying to take guns already. Everybody's talking about automatic weapons. There's not very many people who's got automatic weapons. We got some automatic weapons. Totally different entities. And he's asking you guys about this resolution, and you guys are sitting there like, well, I don't know. Did you talk about it? Did we not talk about it? Did we go outside and talk to other people that already passed it? It sounds like we're still stifling what's going on right now. I know there's other things that you guys have to do, but we put that petition in front of you guys to have something happen. And so far, within 3 years, nothing has happened. We're here back in full session again. How many did we have? Everybody's talking about the First Amendment. Maybe we need to put a resolution on the First Amendment. They're already trying to take the First Amendment away from you right now, trying to take the freedom of speech. You can shake your head all you want. A lot of people in here, they went through and they did the research, but they didn't do a full research. They only saw what they wanted to see, only what they wanted to hear, but they didn't want to hear everybody else's rebuttals on it. We're here because we signed that petition because the government is trying to do some things that we do not agree with. And yes, I agree that if you 3 left right now, we'd probably have to go through it again, but you know what, we'd come back in numbers again to keep that in place. I don't see where anything has happened. And we're like I said, we're here back again, back and forth, and that's it. That's all we're doing. How many times do we have to do that? It seems like every time somebody does this, everybody wants to do it back and forth, but they don't want to do anything about it. Well, I want you to take a look at everybody in here and look at the person next to you. Do you trust that person to take and defend you if you need to defend it? You've got police officers here. I see 2 of them in here that I know of. And if you got and they got called up, how long is it going to take for them to get to you? You probably won't be alive by the time they get to you. But if you have somebody that's already got a weapon with them, they can take that threat out. Yeah, exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. Everybody did some kind of research, but they didn't research it all the way out. They only researched it to console themselves, and that's it. You got to think about everybody else too. I would be here to take and protect anybody in here. I've got 20 years military, retired, Army and Air Force both. You put yourself in a situation right now, if this police officer wasn't here, or another police officer wasn't here, and somebody walked through that door right now, what would you do?
But can you tell us, we're in a state that just passed permitless carry. Who's trying to take your weapons and your right? If you want to provide, defense for your family and yourself, and even for us in the
It's
city.
not about
But
providing
who's trying,
for myself.
who's trying to take that from you?
Everybody's, no.
So what are they doing right now? That's trying to take your guns?
Presently, they're attempting to pass an assault weapon ban that would ban all semi-automatic rifles in the United States.
That's what everybody does. Everybody does their little research, they don't do a small.
All right.
Okay, this went on long enough.
We got too many.
That petition was signed, it's up in these, that, the resolution on that needs to be done, where we are a sanctuary.
One at a time, please. I lost out on part of it.
Okay, I just had, you had said that you guys started looking into your own resolution, worded it differently, am I correct that you said that? Okay, is that when, can I ask if you guys are gonna move forward with that, and when can we expect you to have your own for us to see and read?
This resolution?
And this was the start.
Yeah.
So this was our counter. It's not like we're going to sign it tonight, so.
But is it, that resolution you had, have us here today, where this says that you basically you're gonna uphold your oath. I'm talking about making Jefferson County a sanctuary, Second Amendment sanctuary. If you're gonna draw up your own sanctuary documents, and then we can read it and see if we agree with that, then you'll sign it?
You say this is from Jennings County?
I'm pretty sure that was sampled from Jennings County.
My question would be if it's enforcement. That's the thing, if it's enforcement.
Okay, well, I understand, if you,
There's no sense
I guess
making
I would
an order.
like, and maybe some of the other people like, maybe you guys can come up with a resolution that you think is enforceable, and then we maybe all can read it, and then if we can all then put an end to this, and you'll have one that you guys believe in and your lawyer will like, and it's one maybe we'll agree to, and then maybe we can get this over with.
Okay with that.
It's reasonable.
All right. That is reasonable? Can I get near a timeline, or maybe how long that'll take?
Oh,
No? Okay.
I don't know how long.
Okay, that's fine. I'll call,
I mean,
I'll call which one of you is my commissioner maybe in a few weeks and see how long far you are, guys.
so.
Is that fine?
I mean,
All
fine,
right.
go ahead.
Thank you, I'll pass on, thank you.
I mean, to think that you can present something, just wait a second, and that we're automatically going to accept it without any back and forth.
3.
Huh?
It's been 3 years. It's not, we accepted immediately, it's been 3 years.
You're going to need to come up and sign in, okay? So, you can
Yes,
come up, yeah.
yes.
That's what we're trying to avoid. You want to keep it civil, let's keep it civil, we'll have that discussion. I don't,
Okay, my name is Daniel Hellman. I'm a resident of the Jefferson County. Okay, excuse me. Number one, Indiana is a non-preemptive state. In other words, state law more or less holds sway. The other counties that are sanctuary counties, if it's contrary to Indiana law, they can be contested and that law will go away. Read the laws on gun control. You know, local entities cannot do that. Okay. Secondly, if you get some kind of ordinance that you're going to put on there that is going to preempt the state law, you better do it on a ballot, not a room full of people that are loud. Put it on the ballot. Let all the voters of Jefferson County come forward and say, this is what we want. Not 3 people. I'm talking about everybody in the state of the county, sorry.
sure.
Jefferson County of Indiana. If you're going to have a sanctuary, let's have everybody put input into this. All right? And as far as Greenwood is concerned, I want to point out one thing. The first person that was shot
was reported to have been armed. So it didn't make a whole hell of a lot of difference that he was armed. He didn't stop it. And I'm going on the thing, he was probably a good guy. The second guy was very well trained, he had a spine, and he did what needed to be done. Those are the types of people that should have a gun. That's my own esteemed opinion. If somebody's gonna be walking around out on the street with a gun, they should know what the hell they're doing. All right, so to close, I'm gonna go right back to it. If you're gonna put an ordinance for sanctuary state, which I just think that the Indiana state is probably one of the most pro-gun states in the United States. So this is really kind of secondary. And you have sworn an oath to obey and enforce the laws of the state and the federal law. If you don't like the laws, change them. You enforce what you're supposed to because you took the oath. Any official that doesn't want to do that should just retire, put down the badge, put down the gun, put down whatever it is that they're doing, and let somebody stand up that can do it. And going back to it, if you're going to do it in a democracy, put it on the ballot. That's very simple to do. Do a petition to put this on the ballot. Go with a lawyer, a 2A lawyer in Indianapolis or where one is. Have them write your thing if you want to be a sanctuary and put it on the ballot. Never mind these guys, on the ballot. So everybody has a chance to air what they're doing. And then we can count it out and see who is in the majority. There are a lot of people in here that are being cowed, that are saying, we don't want this. Let's find out. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't speak to the sanctuary issue because it was not part of the resolution, but I have some constitutional insights into the idea of the sanctuary movement. In the early 19th century, John C. Calhoun came up with this idea of juxtaposition and interposition to keep the national laws from affecting the state of South Carolina, because he wanted to have slavery in South Carolina, and it looked like the feds were moving away from that direction. That is not how the Constitution works. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and you cannot have a county, and I would disagree with Mr. Hellman that the ballot is not the way to go, that the expense of taking a court case to the Supreme Court is going to dig a hole bigger than the taxpayers of Jefferson County can anticipate at this juncture. And so it seems to me that just as Ms. Patterson suggested that the positive laws for gun owners is only increasing in our very day, and that the idea that we have anything to fear from engaging Second Amendment, Mr. Carter needs to recognize that cities and states are the creatures of the state, that the idea that as Jefferson County citizen, I'm not obligated to the state of Indiana as a taxpayer, as abiding by health department regulations, and on down the line, that it's a central issue of federalism about how the governmental system works, and the sanctuary idea is a mistake about how the U.S. Constitution works. And I'm still Ruth Turner.
Tony, did you want to say something?
That about right?
Whatever.
Close?
A little closer.
Here?
There you go.
There you go. Okay. Well,
I didn't know what to expect when I came here tonight, but a friend of mine said, you ought to go to this meeting and find out what's going to be said, because it ought to be kind of wild. And I said, well, I'm in for a wild meeting. So anyway, I don't want to talk about pro-gun and anti-gun or ordinances or whatever. It looks to me like when I listen to this conversation, this is what I hear. Essentially, I think the pro-gun people, I think I can sum it up, they don't want gun registration, they don't want gun confiscation. Basically, they don't want to have a right to own their gun, keep their gun, use their gun, whatever, however they see fit. The anti-gun people make an assumption that taking everyone's guns away is going to somehow make everybody safer. Okay, well that's kind of, it doesn't really hold logical reason. So here's what I would say. The biggest thing that I'm concerned about what I hear here is it's turning into too much of a, do we get an ordinance or do we get a referendum or do we get some sort of resolution, okay? Here's the bigger problem. The bigger problem is we're mixing two constitutions. There's a federal constitution and there's an Indiana constitution, and they're very quite different. If you've read them both, first thing you'll see is the Indiana Constitution is far superior to the federal Constitution. Now that might shock people, but the reason it's far superior is because it's written in simple sentences. There's no commas. The Indiana Constitution says this, 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 this. The federal Constitution waffles around, subject to interpretation. So if you read both, you'll see it for yourself. But here's what's going on here. What you've got is, in this thing, I shouldn't call it a thing, this resolution. Okay, one of the problems that I see with it is we're talking about two constitutional issues in two bodies of government. One's the federal, one's the state. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Now, I don't know what the intent is, but, okay, let's just go to the Indiana Constitution, or the United States Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state. Okay. You go to the Indiana part of it, and it says, wherever it's at here, Article 1, Section 2, Indiana Constitution says the people shall have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state. The Indiana Constitution is really talking about a state militia. Okay, now we should all be concerned about something that's going on right in front of our eyes that nobody sees or nobody looks at, okay? And that's the encroachment of the federal government onto the states' rights. Okay, that's a big deal. That's the biggest deal that's going on in the country today. All right, and here's how that goes on. Right now, this is kind of FYI, the federal government is embedding U.S. Army soldiers and military personnel in every county in the United States. They're going to let them live here and more or less report on the counties they live in. There's 3,000 counties in the United States, okay, of roughly 3,000 counties in the United States. That means there'll be 3,000 military personnel living in your county reporting on meetings just like this, okay? Now, the scary part of that is that there was a bill proposed in Congress, it's actually proposed in the House of Representatives right now, to eliminate government oversight of the information that the military collects in these counties. If that don't scare you to death, the gun control issue is minor compared to these kinds of issues. And what you're talking about is an infringement on the state's rights to legislate and run their own state. Okay, next problem. We can already see the United States is split up into red states, blue states. Okay, we're essentially in a non-shooting civil war here. Okay, the red states, they got their ideas. The blue states, they got their ideas. I respect all that. That's all fine. The problem is that to try to run a divided country from a federal position is virtually an impossibility, which will probably play out in not such pleasant ways in the future. So what we need to do is we need to think about, I'm not sure this does anything other than raise awareness that we should be thinking about what the states' rights are and what the federal rights are and who we want to you know, how we want to run our state. Do we want to be a free and independent state, as the original Constitution says? Or do we want to be just a satellite of Washington, D.C., which is, in my opinion, not very good for Jefferson County? So, not to belabor the point, gun control, not gun control, this, that, whatever, yeah, it can be excessive. You can see, if you just look at those places that have excessive gun control, it doesn't seem to solve any of their problems, okay? We have very little gun control, and I don't know if gun control here would solve anybody's problems here. So our gun not control. So the point I'm trying to make is rather than getting embroiled in this gun control debate, okay, and I agree with one thing that Ruth said, which makes a lot of sense. We could cut this resolution off right here at the end of the third paragraph, because, and I've taken this oath to the Constitution several times myself. The commissioners, as an executive board for the county, have already sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States. I don't know that there's any reason that they have to make some special consideration for the Second Amendment over the First Amendment or any other amendment. The Constitution of the United States means the Constitution of the United States. Okay? That's what they're sworn to do. Now here's the bigger issue. The bigger issue is when they do pass ordinances, okay, are they adhering to the Indiana Constitution or the federal Constitution? And I'd say you can't have allegiance to both. Here's my turn. Thank you. Here, you want me to sign this?
You only get one chance.
I'll be quick.
I'm just kidding.
I just wanted to say a couple more things since the conversation has kind of gone sideways a little bit in a different direction. Again, my name is Jane Stormer. I'm a Hanover resident. I think what's really important to me when we're talking about sanctuaries is what that actually means when you actually have to address what a sanctuary does. Does a sanctuary basically say if there is a federal law that is passed, an amendment, an act that essentially says we are now going to ban this, or we are now going to more heavily regulate this and enforce it, does that then, a sanctuary then require us not to adhere to that as a community?
Well, I tell you.
Okay. So when that happens, if something like this were to pass, which I disagree with, I don't want it to pass. When that would happen, let's think about what that would look like. In 1984, there were drinking ages that were determined by states, right? Every state had a different drinking age. And it was proven that that was problematic. There were a lot of deaths, and the federal government decided, well, we want to have a unified drinking age for all states. So they managed to achieve that by passing the National Minimum Drinking Age Act in 1984, and within that act, they enforced it by saying, well, if you don't adhere to this, you will not get federal highway funding. So I don't think anybody's going to come for your guns. I think what's going to happen is they're going to come for our funds. So, commissioners, I have a question. Currently, what federal funds are we receiving in the county, and do you have an estimate of how much money that is? Ballpark.
Big gas tax, wasn't it?
Federal and state tax. Gas tax.
Gas tax, state.
CARES funding, the ARP funding.
So CARES, ARP, some rescue funds are coming in, all sorts of things like that. Is there like a roundabout number you can think about of what it might be that the federal government is supporting our county with?
CARES was.
This year we've received over 3 million.
Okay, so $3 million in federal funds.
Over 3 million.
Over 3,
Well,
okay.
Yeah, but I mean, any other
Right.
sources though? I can't think of any.
Some of it is, we were just through an audit, and some of it is federal money, but it actually filters through the state, so then it loses federal status, so it gets complicated. But I can say for sure, we have received one that is over 3 million, and I know that there is some more. That's what pushes us to the federal audit level.
Okay, great. So multiples of millions. What could we expect to see not happen in our county if we did not have federal and perhaps even state funding available because of the state adhered to not being a sanctuary state? Then they could also withhold funds in order to make sure that individual communities within the state are adhering to this federal law so that they could also receive the federal funds.
Building maintenance would be a mute point.
Okay, so building maintenance, what about this road project that's happening? How many millions was that? Do we know, was that a city thing and not a county thing, or?
Road project.
Okay,
Hanover Hill?
I mean,
yeah,
That was city.
56?
That was city.
Highway
That was city,
56.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
Well, the
that on
point,
top is the state,
right.
from Hanover Hill to Bloucher. It's a state project, so
a state project,
any
okay.
state highways, they take care of.
Okay, so if we decided to be a sanctuary and the federal and state government decided to use, in a sense, sanctions to enforce this law, we may be sitting in our county with only local funds to get projects and maintenance, possibly even salaries at times.
Layoffs.
Yeah, there would be layoffs. So we would have a very small pot of money. We would just have local money. And we can't do what we need to do in our county with just local money. There are very few states who can do what they do with just state money. There are only like 3 or 4 states, or probably less, that can actually function with their own GDP as a state. So I guess my point is, I don't want to live in a county that doesn't have federal funding and doesn't have state funding. I think I would leave real quick.
So you give up your rights for money?
Yeah, I would rather die than kill somebody with a gun myself. And I think the point I'm trying to make is it's not any individual's responsibility to make that decision, that we can't have access to federal funds because industries would close, they would move, they wouldn't come here. It would be a mess. The relevance is we should not have a sanctuary anything for the Second Amendment
You
here.
don't know that there is going to be repercussions for that. You're talking about something that.
This is just how the government's done it in the past.
All right, all
So
right,
this is
all
what
right.
we've seen in the past. And
All
I'll
right.
stop because I don't want to get us too far off topic. I'm just saying I don't like this idea of a sanctuary.
And that's fine, okay?
I would like.
You've had your 5 minutes plus, so,
Okay, and I don't think you need to pass a resolution either. I'm happy to let y'all just not do anything, because that is also your right.
okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Can you come up here?
So we should put a price on our rights, so we should worry about that, or be bullied basically, not getting punished for our county.
Yes.
Which that in itself is pretty much illegal if you are, or justify that, but you're gonna sit there and worry about losing no money over some cuts in this sanctuary. We've already got to come.
Excuse me. You need to come up here and speak, sir, please.
I'm almost done. I'm saying.
Well, then please, then if you're not going to abide by the rules, please sit down, okay? We have a simple rule. You come up here and speak, I'll be happy to let you speak. But when you decide that it's not for you,
You got my point.
It's obvious we haven't resolved anything.
no, that's fine. That's okay. So, anything else? Okay, last time.
I just got one question for y'all. Y'all are such strong supporters of the Second Amendment and Constitution, this and that. How much longer you got to increase on Jefferson County, Indiana residents and their businesses or gun ranges and not let them operate?
We are not.
I'm not sure, we have not done any of that, so,
You didn't put an injunction on.
but that's,
No, we didn't.
that's a zoning issue, and they had the opportunity to appeal, and they did not. Yes, they did. Sir?
This is a court, and you're gonna start to litigate that here?
No, I'm just.
You have an injunction that took my right away to shoot on my own land. That is my God-given right. That is not a right for you to take away with the zoning ordinance.
Don't go there, Dave.
So that's where that reflects.
Well, the federal court, the state courts are working through that,
Well,
so.
they certainly are.
On the Second Amendment, they kind of left out part of it. In case you don't know, the Second Amendment was written for one reason and one reason only by the forefathers. That was to keep you armed to fight against your tyrannical government only. Now, the part that was left out of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, look up the word infringed if you don't know what it is, but it means there is no discussion on it. It cannot be taken away from us. It's according to the law of the land, the Constitution. Now, the other thing is, Cowesett County issued the Second Amendment Freedom Policy and Ordinance, and it was passed in Cowesett County. Paragraph 2 said, the ordinance states that the county is against any law or resolution that eliminates, reduces, so I brought my glasses, regresses, diminishes, or subverts the rights of any law-abiding citizen had been able to adhere. But anyway, I'll jump to the third paragraph. You can key it up and look at their Second Amendment ordinance. The third one says it was necessary. The draft of the ordinance came earlier this year following the announcement that President of the United States said on the restrictions and policies in the commissions of so and so and so and so. In other words, they wrote one because Biden's going to take your guns if he can. Clear and simple. And he's trying. The law that they're trying to pass that got put off until August would ban every gun that you have in this room except a .22 rifle with a tube and every other gun would be against the law to own. All semi-automatics, all revolvers, all whichevers. That law, I think, is HR 8148 something 014, but you can look it up. They're there. And I will give them a copy. I think I give them that packet I gave you. You have the law. The law they're trying to pass and so forth. But the Second Amendment says, is there to protect us from a tyrannical government at all levels of government. And it says your Second Amendment shall not be infringed. Now, all I've asked for, and it seems to be getting all squared away here, what I asked for was that we do not spend my taxpayer money enforcing federal or state laws because that's their job to do. My taxpayers to the county should not pay for it. I should not have to have our police officers or SWAT teams to go because some fed wants to go. And by the way, I've got some YouTubes that I will give to them to watch about where the ATF is showing up illegally without warrants, demanding information on firearms. Delaware had a big case. They're out there, and they're using the law enforcement in some cases. ATF is usually there with the law enforcement. In Delaware, they had a highway state policeman with them. But if you lose your Second Amendment rights, you have lost them all. And that's all you need to really remember. Thank you. Can't get all that.
Who's coming to help you?
Yep, I thought he was coming.
My name's Craig Copeland. I'm from Canaan. I was born and raised in Jefferson County. Spent 20 years in the Marine Corps all over the world. And when the original petition was brought up to me, I signed it almost instantaneously because I've actually had my 2A rights pretty much denied. And a lot of the arguments opposed to this topic have been, they just don't want it. They don't feel that our rights are being infringed on or they're going to be infringed on. I've had my rights infringed on. I am a lawful gun owner. I've had 20 years of military experience with weapons, pistols, rifles, some other things that are, pretty fun. But my thing was I wanted to be able to legally carry a concealed sidearm on my person in my day-to-day activities. I went through the proper channels. I did my background check, and I was told by the state that I lived in, which, I'm not going to name the state, but I believe it was the county denied it because they didn't see a need for me to carry my firearm. That's why this sanctuary status is important for me. And I'm not saying you guys are going to infringe my rights, but what I want to make sure of is all of our rights are, our rights. We're going to keep them. The original petition, the ordinance that was in there, I understand, hey, the lawyers didn't think, it was the right go-to, fine.
we have a lot of 2A supporters for this. Let's work hand in hand. Let's get this petition done. And then hopefully both sides are, you know, I know everyone's not going to be happy. This is just the way this place is. This the way the world is. But let's try to get it to where everyone feels comfortable, like, or at least more comfortable, because right now we're not there. The 2A is not there, and the opposing side's not there. And I'm not, like, I think I've been to every one of these meetings that this topic's been brought up in. And the last one, I was really outnumbered. But I've talked with you gentlemen personally, off to the side and everything. Like, I have no doubt that you had the best interest, but I think there's a better way that we can go about this, and that's what we need to do, and the time is now. Like, honestly, we don't need to keep bickering between ourselves. Like, Mr. Carter, man, you've been tenacious in this. Hats off to you. Thank you. But if we're going to move forward, we need to move forward with a more solid resolution, ordinance, whatever it may be. But, like, honestly, I mean, you had good intentions, but I don't think it was solid enough. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not going to critique every line of it. And, I mean, I got a high school education, and I know there's people in here that have a higher education than me, but that's what I'm getting out of it. And I don't see 3/4 of this room being on board with it. And I know we don't speak for everyone in the county, but this is what we're adamant about. And it's not just Jefferson County. There's 3,000 counties in the nation. There's a large number just in Indiana that have already accepted or came to a sanctuaries. And we want to be on board with that because we believe it's going to be protecting our rights. And, like, people's going to say, hey, we're not going to turn into Chicago or whatever because we're just a small town Indiana. Yeah, we're a small town Indiana where you can't have a semi drive through downtown Main Street. Like, everything's already getting limited. So we're just trying to protect our rights. That's it. So, but again, thank you, Mr. Carter. You done awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good input.
Bob?
Well, I think if nothing else, we need to look through some of these and see if possibly we can do something that's got some teeth in it. I don't have a bit of problem with it, but there's no sense in acting an ordinance that's not enforceable. But if we can come up with something that's got teeth in it, I'd be all in favor of it. Maybe we need to check with Jennings County and some of these others and see how they would handle it, if that ever comes to that.
Any other comments?
Okay, well, we're gonna work on this. Bobby says we're gonna work on putting some meat and some teeth with it. After the comments we've heard tonight, we've made some notes on here, all three of us, I'm sure. Oh,
Could I ask that when we come up on your next draft, that it be made available
Yeah.
to the public? Because we didn't see what we were walking into.
Well, I mean, it wasn't our intent to pass it tonight. It was to let people read it tonight. So it's kind of, it is that first draft. We wanted to be able to talk rather than just hand it out, so.
So I don't know if there's a public way for you to share your draft resolutions or so. This is a work in progress.
Yep,
or how
we agree.
communicate with you.
Sure. I mean, we can put it up on the county website and let people know when it comes up and do it that way, so. I mean, we want to work with everyone, okay? We know that there are people that are going to disagree and people are going to both ways. So that's why we thought a meeting would be the way to get it get it started again. I understand it's been a long time. I wish we didn't have a year and a half when things really just couldn't move forward, so at least in that area. Can get her, then I'll get you.
Yes. How many signatures were on the original ordinance request? I mean, is there a number that needs to be on a request for an ordinance?
I can look that up. I'm not sure. I'm sure there is a certain number, but this, I mean, you know, you need 50 signatures to get on a ballot. This is several thousands, so.
Yeah, I recall, I believe there was around 2,700 signatures.
So.
In a very short amount of time. Like about 2,700 in about 2 weeks or so.
Once we got her.
That was my question.
Okay, so.
You know, everybody wants to talk about training and being the power owners and users and whatnot. Why don't the county look into putting some county ranges up? There's no local ranges where anybody can go practice or get educated. You know, maybe look into a certified range officer and get safety training or aim training or training, educate the public. Give them an opportunity in the county to come practice some skills or a safe place to live.
I'd like to concur with that. I have to drive 30 minutes either to Switzerland County or to Crosley in order to find a range.
Do all three commissioners have to agree on this resolution or whatever you want to call it, or just
We'd like to.
Yeah, I'm not.
We don't agree on everything, but we try to compromise and work it out. We'd like to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's important, we're gonna find something that we agree upon to move forward with. So, but.
I mean, is it your bylaws or anything that it has to be a majority or it has to be all three?
Well, so I think in the end, the vote on it doesn't have to be, it would have to be a majority, doesn't have to be unanimous. We all would sign it, whether or not we voted for it or not.
Right.
So, I mean, 2 to 1 would still pass the resolution or the ordinance or whatever, but doesn't mean at all. So, anyway, by that. Yes?
Wouldn't you agree that the sheriff is the ultimate law enforcement in the county?
Sure.
So why isn't the sheriff on here as a signature? I mean, commissioners don't have any enforcement capability. There's really no teeth in it. Unless the sheriff agrees. He has to, he's the one that has to enforce it.
Sure, if it was passed as an ordinance, then his job would be to enforce the ordinance.
But if it's a resolution,
well,
it's still a resolution.
correct. I mean, so, yes.
I believe that is the ordinance that we passed, if there was a law that wasn't in the Indiana Constitution, and the federal government tried to force one of these guys through the door to take away somebody's guns, then they don't have to do that by the ordinance that they passed.
Well, I'm saying, if the sheriff don't want it, then take an ordinance and say no.
Go ahead.
The sheriff is the leading law enforcement officer in this county, and he is above the state and the rest of them. He is the law enforcement of this county, and whether you like it or not, that is the way. The sheriffs are elected, they are the law enforcement of this county. And you can't play heavily on that it is true.
Good?
Yep.
Good? Okay, well, more people came out tonight than I thought. So I thank you for that. We may not have got said what you wanted to hear, and you may not have said what we want to hear, but What did you say there a while ago? Where'd he go? We'll work it together. So that I appreciate it. I'm find out where you are, see whose commissioner you are. I'll give you my number. You know,
So, it was, and maybe it came across as that, but it wasn't, this is it. This is kind of our initial response. Let's work on this. Let's see what we can come up with. I understand it's taken a long time, but it's been it was a difficult 2 years, and so.
Like I said, just kind of threw for a loop because we thought
Sure.
we were coming here to talk about that, and it was something basically completely different.
Sorry for
I don't
that.
think anybody that agreed with me questioned whether you guys do your job or not, or you will do your job. That's fine.
okay, well then, as in all meetings, I
To adjourn.
had a motion to adjourn.
Wait a second.
A second. We will get back with you, and you watch the website. Thank you all for coming.